September 27th, 1969, Lake Berryessa, Napa County. It's a warm, sun-drenched afternoon. College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard are relaxing on a blanket, enjoying a picnic by the water. The tranquility of the scene is about to be shattered. From the trees, a figure emerges. He's a man, stocky and slow-moving, but it's his head that freezes them in place. He's wearing a bizarre medieval executioner's hood, black and crudely made, with clip-on sunglasses covering the eye holes. On his chest, drawn in white, is a strange symbol, a circle with a cross through it. In his hand, he holds a gun. He tells them he's an escaped convict, that he needs their car and money to get to Mexico. He's surprisingly calm. He orders Cecilia to tie Brian up with pre-cut lengths of plastic clothesline. Then he ties her. They are helpless. But he's not there for their car. He puts the gun away and pulls out a long, double-edged knife. He tells them he is going to have to stab them. Brian and Cecilia are stabbed again and again and again. The man then walks calmly back to their car. He takes out a black pen, and on the passenger door, he draws his cross-circle symbol and writes a message for the police, a scorecard of his reign of terror. An hour later, a payphone rings at the Napa County Sheriff's Office. The man on the other end speaks in a low, rehearsed drone. "I want to report a murder. No, a double murder. They are 2 miles north of park headquarters. They were in a white Volkswagen Carmen Ghia. And then the most chilling part. I'm the one that did it." This was not just a killer. This was a performer, a manipulator who didn't just want to murder. He wanted to orchestrate the fear, control the narrative, and play a deadly game with the entire state of California. He gave himself a name, a brand. He was the Zodiac, and his identity, to this day, remains one of the most enduring and terrifying enigmas in American criminal history.
Welcome to Unsolva. Subscribe and join me on the quest to dissecting the greatest unsolved crimes in history.
Chapter 1. The Reign of Terror. The bizarre theatrical horror at Lake Berryessa was not the beginning. The Zodiac's reign of terror started 9 months earlier, on December 20th, 1968, on a lonely gravel turnout on Lake Herman Road in Benicia. High school students David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen were on their very first date. Just after 11 p.m., an assailant approached their car, armed with a .22 caliber pistol. He ordered them out. Faraday was shot in the head as he exited the vehicle. Jensen tried to run, but she was pursued and shot 5 times in the back. There was no clear motive, no robbery, just cold, brutal violence. For months, the case went cold. The killer simply vanished. Then 7 months later, on the 4th of July, 1969, he struck again. In Vallejo, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Majot were sitting in a parked car at Blue Rock Springs Park. A car pulled up alongside them, idled, and drove off, only to return 10 minutes later, parking behind them. The driver got out, walked to their window, and shined a bright flashlight directly into their eyes. Without a word, he opened fire with a 9mm pistol. Darlene Ferrin was killed. Michael Majot was shot in the face, neck, and chest, but he miraculously survived. 40 minutes after the shooting, the Zodiac made his first call. From a payphone just blocks from the Vallejo Police Department, he claimed responsibility not only for this attack, but for the murders on Lake Herman Road. The game had begun. This 7-month cooling-off period between the first 2 attacks is a common trait in serial killers, a phase of fantasy and reflection. But after the Blue Rock Springs attack, something inside the Zodiac accelerated. His compulsion intensified. After the hooded attack at Lake Berryessa in September 1969, his final confirmed murder came just 2 weeks later, on October 11, 1969. This time he changed his method completely. moving from isolated lovers' lanes to the heart of San Francisco. Paul Stein, a 29-year-old cab driver, picked up a fare in the city. The passenger requested to be taken to the upscale neighborhood of Presidio Heights. In that quiet residential area, the killer shot Stein in the head with a 9mm pistol, took his wallet and car keys, and tore off a large piece of his shirt. 3 teenagers across the street witnessed the aftermath and called the police, believing it was a robbery. What happened next was a catastrophic blunder that would haunt the investigation forever. The police dispatcher mistakenly broadcast that the suspect was a black male. As 2 officers responded to the scene, they drove right past a stocky white man walking away, just a block from the murder. They didn't stop him. He was not the man they were looking for. They had, in all likelihood, just passed the Zodiac Killer and let him walk away into the night. This critical miscommunication directly contributed to his escape and perhaps to why the case remains unsolved. The Zodiac's evolving modus operandi was a deliberate tactic to evade capture. He shifted from shooting couples to a personal, savage stabbing to the targeted killing of a lone cab driver. This variability made him incredibly difficult to profile. Just when investigators thought they saw a pattern, he would change the rules.
Chapter 2. The Killer's Voice. More than the murders themselves, the Zodiac's defining characteristic was his unprecedented and audacious campaign of communication. He wasn't a silent phantom. He was a media personality of his own creation. On August 1, 1969, 3 weeks after the Blue Rock Springs attack, he made his grand debut. He sent letters to 3 Bay Area newspapers, the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner. In these letters, he took credit for the first 2 attacks, providing details only the killer could know. And he introduced himself to the world, not with a name, but with a symbol, the cross circle, like a gun sight. The letters contained a demand. Print this cipher on your front page, or I will go on a kill rampage this weekend. The letters also contained one part of a 3-part, 408-symbol cryptogram. His message was clear. This isn't just murder. This is a challenge. The newspapers complied, and in less than 20 hours, the Z408 cipher was cracked, not by the FBI or the NSA, but by a high school history teacher, Donald Hardin, and his wife, Betty Moore. The message, riddled with misspellings, gave the first terrifying glimpse into the killer's mind. Quote, I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all I have killed will become my slaves. End quote. Slaves for the afterlife. This was his motive. Not lust, not rage, but a bizarre, grandiose delusion of ruling over his victims in some twisted eternity. The Zodiac continued his campaign of terror by mail. He sent more letters, more taunts. To prove he was the killer of Paul Stein, he mailed a piece of the cab driver's blood-soaked shirt to the San Francisco Chronicle. This act served a dual purpose. It proved his authenticity and exerted a chilling psychological dominance over the police and the public. He was in control. In November 1969, he sent his masterpiece, a greeting card containing his most difficult and infamous cipher, the Z340. For 51 years, it stumped the world's greatest cryptologists. It was considered an unbreakable code. But in December 2020, the unbreakable was broken. An amateur team of sleuths, David Orenchak, a software developer in Virginia, Sam Blake, a mathematician in Australia, and Jarl van Eyck in Belgium, finally cracked the code. Using computational power and collaborative ingenuity, they deciphered the message, a solution later verified by the FBI. Quote, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show, which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner, because I now have enough slaves to work for me." End quote. The 51-year delay in cracking the Z340 highlights just how complex the Zodiac's mind was. And he wasn't finished. He sent other ciphers, including one with a diagram of a bomb he threatened to use on a school bus. 2 of his ciphers remain unsolved to this day. His written communications abruptly stopped around 1974, but his game of intellectual warfare had cemented his legacy. He wasn't just a killer. He was a puzzle master, and the ultimate puzzle was his own identity. Chapter 3: The Investigation and the Prime Suspect. So why was he never caught? The Zodiac case was a perfect storm of investigative challenges. It occurred in an era before modern forensics. DNA analysis was the stuff of science fiction. The handling of genetic material on envelopes and stamps was less meticulous, making modern attempts to extract a viable profile incredibly difficult. Fingerprint and handwriting analysis were far less sophisticated than they are today. The investigation was also fractured. The murders spanned multiple jurisdictions: Benicia, Vallejo, Napa, San Francisco. In the 1960s, these agencies often operated in silos, lacking effective means to share critical evidence. The FBI's role was only supportive. They never opened a direct investigation. The very challenges posed by cases like the Zodiac, which required interagency cooperation and specialized expertise, would later lead to the creation of federal programs like the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, or VICAP. But for the detectives hunting the Zodiac, these tools didn't exist. Over the decades, thousands of men were named as possible culprits. But one name has always stood at the center of the storm: Arthur Lee Allen. Allen, a former elementary school teacher and convicted sex offender, remains the only suspect ever publicly named by authorities. The circumstantial evidence against him is staggering. He lived and worked in Vallejo, just minutes from one of the murder scenes and the home of victim Darlene Ferrin. He was fired from his teaching job in 1968, just before the murders began. A former friend told police that Allen had spoken of a desire to kill people, used the name Zodiac, and even discussed attaching a flashlight to a gun for night hunting, all before the crimes began. He owned and wore a Zodiac brand watch, which featured a logo nearly identical to the killer's cross-circle symbol. A typewriter with a typeface matching a letter connected to a possible earlier murder was found in his home. And in 1991, Michael Majau, the survivor from the Blue Rock Springs attack, identified Arthur Lee Allen in a photo lineup. He said, quote, "That's him. It's the man who shot me." The case against Allen seemed overwhelming. But for every piece of damning circumstantial evidence, there was a piece of forensic evidence that pointed away from him. His fingerprints did not match the prints lifted from the Paul Stein cab scene. A partial DNA profile developed in 2002 from saliva on a Zodiac letter did not match Allen's DNA, leading to his official exclusion. However, critics have long argued this DNA sample was collected improperly from the outside of the stamp, not the seal, making its efficacy dubious. Handwriting experts insisted that none of Allen's writing samples even came close to the Zodiac's. And Officer Donald Fouke, the man who likely saw the Zodiac near the Stein murder, stated that Allen was far too heavy and his face too round to be the man he saw that night. Arthur Lee Allen died in 1992, taking any secrets he had to the grave. The debate around him perfectly encapsulates the case itself, a powerful narrative built on circumstantial evidence that is constantly at war with hard, contradictory forensics. In recent years, other suspects have emerged. In 2021, an independent group called the Casebreakers publicly named Gary Francis Post as the killer, citing disputed DNA and anagrams. The FBI has not confirmed their claims. The case remains open.
Chapter 4. The Enduring Enigma. The Zodiac Killer was not a typical serial murderer. His primary motives were not sexual gratification or financial gain. They were power, control, and notoriety. He was an intelligent, arrogant, and sadistic manipulator who derived pleasure not just from killing, but from terrorizing an entire region. His taunting letters, his demands for front-page publication, his complex ciphers, all of it was a performance. He wanted the world to watch. He wanted to prove he was smarter than everyone hunting him. His bizarre motive of collecting slaves for the afterlife was the ultimate expression of his narcissistic grandiosity. He saw himself as a god with dominion over life and death. This unique psychological profile, combined with his shifting methods and the forensic limitations of the era, is what allowed him to succeed. The Zodiac Killer's unsolved case has permeated American culture. He inspired films like Clint Eastwood's Dirty Harry and David Fincher's masterful Zodiac. He has been the subject of countless books, documentaries, and television shows. This enduring fascination stems from a fundamental human fear of the unknown. The lack of identification means the monster was never caught. Theoretically, he is still out there. His case also created a new kind of participant in criminal investigation, the amateur sleuth. The complexity of his ciphers fostered a global community of code breakers and detectives, a community that continues to thrive online today, contributing to breakthroughs like the 2020 decryption of the Z340 cipher. The Zodiac created a meta-narrative, a story about a story, where he was the author, director, and star. He controlled the public discourse. He set the terms of his own manhunt. And in the end, his greatest and most lasting creation was not his body count, but his own enduring mystery. Over 50 decades later, the chilling nature of an intelligent, unidentified predator continues to captivate and terrify. The hope that new technology might finally unmask him ensures the case will never truly be forgotten. It offers a glimmer of hope that one day this enduring enigma might finally be solved, providing closure to the victims' families and a definitive final chapter to one of America's most infamous ghost stories.